Greetings, class. Today we're going to talk about the 7 criteria of effective public speaking. The first thing you need to do when you start your presentation is to have an attention getter. Too many times I've had students come up to the front of the room and say, "My name is Melissa Meek, and I'm going to talk about dental hygiene." Well, immediately I noticed as a professor they did not start with the attention getter. So that's a negative point in my class. So pay careful attention to this one point. Start your presentation with an attention getter. What that means is when you come to the podium, the very first thing that you do is to have a mechanism, some way that you're grabbing your audience's attention. Now, it needs to be relevant to the speech. I've had students come up in the past and they yell out some obscene word and say, "Now that I've got your attention," that's not what I'm talking about. An attention getter must be relevant to the topic that you're discussing. For example, if I hold up a pencil and I ask the class, "How much would you pay for an object like this?" Somebody comments, 10 cents. I say, "Okay, is your sanity worth 10 cents? Today, I want to show you how you as a college student can use this device, a pencil that only costs 10 cents, to keep your sanity by learning the art of journaling." Okay, clearly there was an attention getter, the pencil. Now, one other note, if you're going to use an object like a pencil or anything like that in your hand and you show it to the class, as soon as you've shown them the object, put the object down on the table. Don't allow that to become a distraction. Okay, looking at the 7 criteria, the first one again is to start your speech with an attention getter. The second criteria is to make your purpose clear in the introduction. Once you've grabbed their attention, clearly tell them what your presentation is about. Your audience should never, ever have to guess what your speech is about because you're going to tell them after you've gotten their attention. The third criteria is to use an appropriate organizational pattern. You want to be sure that you are having a very clear pattern, that it's organized. In my class, what I'm looking for is that you have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction is going to have your attention getter, state your purpose, and tell us your 3 main points. The body of your speech is going to go through each one of your main points. And in the conclusion, you summarize those main points, and then you have a clinching statement for your end. When I talk about an appropriate organizational pattern, for this public speaking class, those are the components that I'm looking for: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The next one is to use a variety of sources in your speech. As a speaker, you want to add as much credibility to your speech. So it's through your sources, the data, the facts, the stories, the illustrations. All of those sources will add credibility. Now make sure that you use a variety. All of your sources can't come from one book or one interview. You need to have a variety of different kinds of sources. They can be interviews, articles, magazines, all kinds of different sources. But make sure that when you have those sources that they're credible. In my class, I ask you to cite your sources in 3 specific places. You will cite the source in your presentation when you use the information. You will also cite the source on your outline that you'll turn into me, and you'll cite your source on your bibliography page that you'll turn into me. The next one is to use repetition to emphasize main points. I have a whole section on repetition, but just to start with it, when we talk about repetition, it's done in all 3 parts of your body of your speech. It's done in the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. In the introduction, we do something that's called a preview. You clearly tell your audience what you're going to talk about. These are the 3 main points we're going to discuss today. 1, 2, 3. Then you move into your presentation, you cover each point, and we'll talk about internal summaries and how to do that in the next session. But you'll do that through the body of your speech, and then in the conclusion, right before you finish your presentation, you will do a review. You'll summarize one last time. These are the 3 points that we talked about, 1, 2, and 3. So make sure that you use repetition to emphasize your main points in your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. The next criteria is to come to a definite stop. Be sure that when you finish your presentation, you have some kind of clinching statement already prepared. I've had students in the past that thought, well, I'll just get up and when I finish my speech, I'll just stop. Well, they randomly are looking for some kind of a clinching statement, some ending statement. If you haven't prepared it, it's going to come across as rambling. So you want to be sure that you have just like you did in the beginning for your introduction and you had your attention getter, that you've thoroughly, completely prepared an ending too, a clinching statement that will leave your audience remembering what your speech was about. The last one is to maintain eye contact with your audience. My rule of thumb is this: when you lose eye contact with your audience, you lose your audience. So it's very important that you maintain it throughout the entire presentation. My suggestion is that you have your head normal, turn it to the right, look at the audience a little bit, and let your head naturally scan the room, slowly scanning and looking at the members until you come to the left. It's very important that you don't fall into some of the myths, and we're going to talk about myths a little later, but for right now let me mention looking across the back of the room over their heads or an object on a wall doesn't work. Your audience will see that. They'll know that you're not looking at them, especially in a classroom environment. Your presentations will be given in a classroom environment. So as you consider your audience and your setting, you're going to know that that technique will not work. You'll have to look at your audience. So try your best to span the room looking at different members of the audience as you give your presentation. Also beware of those 1 or 2 friendly audience members that are giving you effective listening. Those people sometimes draw you in and you look at one person too long and just stay looking at them. If that happens, then you lose the other members of the audience. So be sure as you give your presentation that you're maintaining your eye contact with your entire audience. Okay, that's the 7 criteria of effective public speaking.